Hi, I'm just doing a video with some little tips and tricks that I found helpful when sewing badges on. Don't know how I'd not realised this earlier because I do loads of badges for other people. I do my son's Explorer badges, I've done Beavers and Cubs and Scouts, and now I've got my friend's Scout badges that I'm doing. And I just want to show you some tips and tricks to make it so that you can't really see the sewing. And how to get the badges nice and straight and a little bit easier. So I'm going to start with our district badge, and don't get too much thread. If you get too much, you won't be able to, you'll keep getting knots. So I'm just going to, I've put a little knot in the end, so I'm just going to put that where I want it. And then the hard thing with these badges generally is keeping them straight. So I'm going to put my hand inside the sleeve. I've got my badge where I want it, and I've found an easy way to stop it moving. Just find something hard. It might be like a discount card from somewhere. You can hold that. I'm going to use my Victorinox card, which I've had forever. So you're just going to hold that nice flat edge against it, and it will keep it nice and flat. Oh, and the other tip, or another tip, is a thimble. You might find it hard initially to get used to it, but it makes a massive difference. Right, so badges are quite forgiving. So my way of sewing a badge is down through the fabric where you've come up a little bit further and through the edge of the badge. And if you go down nice and straight, the stitches are hidden. So down through there and up through the edge of the badge. You always have one edge that's quite hard to do, especially on sleeves. Alright, so and then it gets easier, but because you're holding it still with something nice and stiff, your badge is not moving around like it normally does. So we're just going to go through like this, pulling the stitches nice and tight. Like I say, try and go down through the shirt. Also makes it easier if it's a new shirt, if you wash it first. Just takes a little bit of that stiffness away, so the needle goes through the fabric that little bit easier. And as you can see, the stitches are not visible. So I'm just going to adjust my stiff object, in this case, like I say, my Victorinox card. That looks quite a good one. A lot of people probably, if you're into Scouts and things, have probably got something similar. Down and along. Excuse if my hand's shaking, it does that. I've got a tremor. Right, so I'm going to carry on and then I'll show you how I finish off just in case you need it. Okay, so I've gone around these three edges. As you can see, it is laying nice and flat. So I'm just going to put my card back on, line it up, and just do these last few stitches. So the other thing I do is I make sure, I used to try and have plenty of thread so that I could get two or three badges done. And then you're just getting knots and it wraps around things, and I found it's just easier going for a smaller piece of thread, no longer than from your hand to your elbow, and then you just don't get in a knot. Right, so I'm just going to push this to the other side here. So I'm going to flip it round, and then what I do is do a tiny little stitch like that, and I'm just going to, oops, sorry, out of view, loop that, it's awkward bit this, With a longer needle it's easy, but I like the shorter needles. Loop that. In fact, I'm just going to do it that way. She says. Let's push the needle through a bit further. Loop that around the needle. I like to do it twice. There we go. And then pull that through. That should stop it coming undone, and then I like to thread it back through and just come up somewhere else to lose that tail and cut it off next to the fabric. So that's our first badge sewn on. And like I say, it lies much flatter, it doesn't move around as much, it's a lot easier. I'm going to try and adjust the camera angle for the next badge. Okay, so next we're going to sew on a round badge, and these are ones that notoriously tend to be harder. So I'm lining my sleeve up ready, and I want this one quite close to the top, making sure that my fleur-de-lis is pointing up. And again, I'm going to get my thread ready. Now, when you're sewing, you go for whatever is the easiest part of this, you know, whether you're going through the sleeve or through the top. I usually start at the top and then work my way around. Now, obviously, the flat thing, not quite as easy. So I found, and I've lost it now. Oh, here, a button. Find a button the right size, or plastic disc. Or I think a milk bottle top might be about the right size as well. So I just happen to have buttons in my collection, and this button is just a brilliant size. So I make sure it's lined up, put my button on so it doesn't move, pick it all up together so it's sandwiched together, and then you move your button towards the edge, holding it with a few fingers below, obviously making sure you don't stab yourself. But we're doing exactly the same as the square one. So where we've come through the badge, we go down through the fabric, up through the badge, around the edge. And you'll notice I use the thread that is the same colour as the shirt, not the same colour as the badges. When I sew them onto the blanket, I tend to use the same colour as the badge because I do it on my sewing machine, it's easier. But you can't really do that on a shirt. So down and up, and then that's it really. I suppose for those people who are not used to sewing badges on, I can show what I do when it gets too tricky to reach from the edges of the shirt. So now, because I've got a bit sewn, I can take that off, but I'll put that back on when I continue. So I'm going to put my hand inside the sleeve to make it easier. And it doesn't matter. As soon as I put that button back on there, it's nice and flat, and then I could just hold it through the shirt. I did have a go at putting the button under the shirt, and that also works. Pull them nice and tight, look, and then you can't see them. So you can put the button under the shirt, but it does tend to slide around a lot more. So it's a little bit trickier, but it does work, give the same effect. Does make it nice and easy if you can hold the button in the right place. So I'll just move the shirt around a little bit. Pull them stitches tight. And I think that's the thing, because you're moving the shirt around all the time, it's not always easy to see what your badge is doing. And, you know, your material puckers, but the flatness of the button just seems to prevent that happening. And I wish I'd thought about this tip years ago. All the badges I've done over the years, and it's just a game changer, this. I've been sewing badges on so much faster and with ease. And, you know, you get them lined up and then you put a few stitches in and it moves, and it's not lined up anymore. And I've really struggled. I say these are my friend's children's shirts. So I'm going to go back from the other side, from the main opening, turn it round. But yeah, my friend's got twins and I'm doing the badges for their shirts, ready for going back after the holidays. And this has just sped up the process so much, made it so easy and quick that I've already done that bit. Look, I've got that round that quick. So I'm going to go through to the back again and then fasten it off again like I did before. So let's see if we can do this. I've got a bit more thread, so this should be easier. So wrap it round, see, look, I did that like a pro then. And then just bring it through somewhere else onto the badge and snip it off. Nice and neat on the inside, beautiful on the outside, looks like it's just been stuck on. So if you look at the sleeve of this one, I know I've got one that I didn't line up properly, and that is going to annoy me, so I will be taking that off and redoing it. But so much easier to get that placement, and they're all sewn on so neatly, so easy. So I was going to end the video there, and then I thought, you know what, these little name tapes, these are the little awkward ones, because they haven't got that lovely edge. So your stitching's going to show no matter what you do. So I'm going to show you how I do it and see if that helps. So I'm going up through the sleeve again, and I'm going to line it up where I want it. Try and get it as straight as I can. So that way, a bit more, and I've got it almost central on here. So what I'm going to do is start by sewing along the top, and then we'll tuck them ends in. They do fold in quite nicely. Are you straight? Not quite. And that's the hardest bit now. So I'm taking my trusty Victorinox card in, and I'm going to try and get that nice and close to that edge, because I'm going to use that as a guide for my stitches. So I've got my needle ready. I can pick it up, and I'm going to go under. I'm going to go a bit further in because obviously I've got that edge. Oops. Hang on. I'll do that. Tuck that back. Right. So in the same way with the other badge, we go down through the fabric in the same place, and then try and hold it with your fingers. You want to come up a little bit further along. And I say, if you keep this nice and near the edge, it's going to keep your stitches. I've moved it, look. I'm just going to shuffle it back a little bit. I want small stitches, but heck. Right, so down through the shirt, bring that back up, try not to stab my finger there. Up, and you're trying to keep the distance between your stitches the same. Now you could use the measurements if you've got one of these on here. So down, so I got my finger out of the way that time, and up, down, and oops, down. I'm very good at stabbing myself with this tremor. Come across as very clumsy. Down and up. So that gives you lovely, neat little stitches that are not going too far into the badge. So I'm going to go along to the end, and then I'll show you how to tuck that bit in. Okay, so I've gone along with those tiny little stitches, and then where that little stitch line is there, I'm just going to tuck that under like that, and then I'm going to bring my card back in and hold it in place. I'm going to try and get a little stitch in right on the corner, and then I'm going to move this round because I like this edge. Move my hand round in the sleeve. And I know my badge isn't really moving now because it's sewn all the way along one edge. Right, so that's one stitch. Well, that's not quite tucked in, look. There we go, a bit better. But yeah, these are a pain to sew because they're so soft and little, and they don't, like I say, have those nice badge edges. Oops, sorry. Make you all feel seasick now. There we go, and then I'm gonna take my hand through the other part of the shirt and twist it round. Always try and make it work easier for you. So it's obviously easier if your hand is out of the shirt than in. Yeah, they're never straight, these things either, are they? Try our best though. I think that is sometimes the frustration when your badges are not same size, same shape, especially the hexagons. You're trying to get them nicely spaced out. On that, the hexagons, I've done exactly the same. So I used the straight edge. I mean, you could try and find something that's the right shape for the hexagon. I guess, like the police, this is police milk carton that I've cut out. I've used kind of a compass cutter to do it. But you could cut out the right shape out of your milk carton, and then you've got your template ready to go. So yep, so you just keep going along. I think my stitches are actually slightly larger at this side. I didn't really pay much attention. Right, it's keeping them small and neat. You can move it around a little bit now that it does slide around a little bit, this card actually. I was using a sewing thing yesterday for the badges on the other shirt, and it hurts your thumb, but it does work quite well. Right, so I can see I'm getting close to that other edge, and we're going to tuck that in. Use my needle to poke it down a little bit. But yeah, just use that line of tape on the tape as your guide. There we go. So turn it around again, and then this last edge, and then that is the name tape done. So I really hope these little tips have been helpful. I used to find, especially, you know, you'd get a couple of stitches in and then it'd move because you're trying to hold it, but you can't hold it all flat. Stuck on my knife bit. There we go, that's the edge of that badge done. And then I just need to go through the back and finish it off exactly the same, but that's quite a neat job. Yeah, so hexagons, as I've said, I can find them, exactly the same. Hold them to the edge, sew the edge, turn it round, sew the edge. Like I say, if you want to get a bit of plastic and make your own template, go for it. But I hope these tips have been helpful. Thank you for watching.